Greetings. Once again, we meet to enhance our learnings. And today we will go and get ourselves familiarized with a new feature, a new aspect of our software, and that would be about working with Metabots. So, the first question that comes is that what is a Metabot? And more importantly, let me first try to address the question by first talking about the scenario that I would be taking in, and then we will see how Metabots would be the right course of action to indulge in this particular demonstration. So you can see in front of ourselves we have a screen which is open, and this screen is basically a website. It's basically a contact form for a bakery site which we wish to populate, and the objective is basically read information from this comma separated values file that I have. It has four fields. The first four fields are basically our area of interest. We need to be able to pick up the data from the first four fields over here, and we need to be able to go and populate the same in this particular website. That is largely the game plan at hand which we wish to accomplish. So idea is to iteratively read information from this comma separated values file and repeatedly keep writing information inside this particular web page. That is the basic game plan that we want to accomplish. So what we have been doing as of now is we have been going and working directly with the surface at hand. So if it was a Windows application or with a website that you wanted to automate on, we went directly and did the recording on top of it. But now what we will be doing is we will be going in and capturing this surface. So I will capture this UI which we people can see, which is open in front of us, and then we will do our recording on the captured user interface instead of the actual live environment. What would be the benefits of this approach? The first benefit of this approach is that that in case tomorrow this UI changes, so in case I have captured this UI using a Metabot, then by a click of a button I can quickly bring my recorded screenshot up to date with the actual site at hand. So that way the changes are very easy to accomplish. More importantly, let's imagine a scenario that maybe I have an application which is having a limited licensing, maybe something which the organization has just procured and everybody wants to quickly get their hands dirty with it, and the same is limitedly available. People who want to work on top of it are many, and obviously the environment at hand has limited availability. So what we can do is we can capture this UI. So once we capture the UI via the Metabot, it will capture all the properties of the object. For example, text boxes or text area or button or whatever is the control. And once it is able to capture all the properties, then we can go and work on top of it. So that is the benefit of the screen that will be capturing using our Metabot in this particular demonstration. Secondly, like I said, tomorrow if this environment changes, every website or every application for that reason, after some time frame down the line, always undergoes some kind of upgrade, some kind of modifications, and the same can be quickly reflected in our captured screenshot, which we will take via Metabot by the click of a button, which is basically what we are trying to showcase over here. So that is the primary or key objective. Secondly, like I said, this environment which we are going to be going and using allows us to go and work with different modes. So let's say I was not able to capture a particular text box by object mode. I have the flexibility, I have the ability to go and work with the coordinates mode or the image mode for that reason. That is possible over here. That is supported in this Metabot environment, which we are about to go and indulge in. Further, this environment also has its own inbuilt abilities for creating commands. It has its own mini task editor where you have a small subset of commands. When I talk about editor, obviously I cannot fail to mention that there are going to be variables also available over there. And the variables which will be available over here would be we have three broad categories of variables which are available at this spot. One is the input variable, which is useful just for putting in information inside this environment. So our objective is to read information from the CSV file and then go and write that information on this website. So since we will not be interfacing directly with this website, but we will be storing this screenshot inside a Metabot. So we will be bringing in the values externally from some external source, which in our case is our CSV file, and putting the values into this recorded screenshot, which we'll be taking in a moment's time, and we will bring it. So once you bring it in, you need to store the values intermittently somewhere. You cannot just take values from external source and throw them directly. You have to first store them somewhere. So we will have to store them inside a category of variables known as input variables. So if I want to pass down some values into this environment, we will use the input variables over there. And let's say I wanted to take some information from this environment and send it back to the external environment. By the way, the Metabot does not work on its own. It needs a task bot. So when I say send environment from some external source into this, or take some information from this Metabot into some external environment, the external environment which I'm referring to will be connected through the task bot, within which we will be calling this Metabot. So the task bot takes in the inputs, passes those inputs into the input variables for the relevant Metabot, and those values are then written into this particular screen. And then from this captured screen, if I wanted to send something back, I would again do that. We would again do that using our set of variables, which would be the output variables. So if you want to bring something in, you use the input variables. You want to send something out, you use the output variables. You want to maybe use a variable for both inputs as well as outputs, you use the input output variable, which allows both two-way communication. So those are again certain other merits which you can have with respect to the Metabot. More importantly, let's say that when we're talking about the fact that the big team of bot creators needs to be able to automate on this, and again looking at a hypothetical situation, or maybe something which is also practical, that maybe the environment is limitedly available. So what we do is, one person sits on this environment, he captures this environment, he designs that what variables are going to be sent into this environment, he designs that what are going to be the output from this environment. And once he has designed that Metabot, he gives it to the, he uploads it into a web control room. So all the bot creators who have the rights, they will have to be given specific rights to be able to download it from the WebCR. They can download it from the web control room, and then they can go and start working with it. So another merit over here would be consistency, because everybody has to use the same set of variables to pass the values in, the same set of variables everybody has exposure to get values in as well as get values out. So everybody is on the same page. And today, when we look at typical production or development environments, you have people, a separate set of people who are working on the UI. So I have a separate set of designers who are doing the UI development, and then I have a separate set of people who are doing the coding in the backend. So similarly, if you want, you can have a set of people who are working on the actual application front. They capture the front end, they design the parameters to pass the values in and pass the values out, and once they have designed that, they give it to the second set of team, which is the bot creators. The bot creators may not have direct access to the environment, so they will be only interfacing to the environment using this Metabot that we are creating. by the first team of Metabot creators, and then the larger team of bot creators can use that Metabot for getting the values and getting the outputs and working with it. So again, you can have a a role based access. People, a certain set of team could be involved in the Metabot development. Certain part of the team could be involved in consuming the Metabot, and then writing the task bots which use the Metabot in a larger perspective. So that is something about just to give you some quick concept and some aspects about the Metabot, but all theory and no actual hands-on obviously makes things difficult to understand and comprehend. So what we will do is, we will first of all, let's go inside our Automation Anywhere client, and let's go into the Metabot section. So I have gone inside the Metabot section, which is absolutely empty at this point of time, as you can see. So I am going to go and click on record over here, and that says that how do you want to go and record your Metabot. So what I would like to do is, I would like to record my screens with the logic also, so that the turnaround time is less. I have to put in less effort to design the logic, because it will capture the screen as well as whatever actions I am doing. It will design the logic also in the back end, and that cuts down my effort, which otherwise we all of us would need to do. So the whole idea of automation is to be able to do that. So first of all, you can see it is showing me all the open applications which are currently available to us. So we will choose to work with this first application. As you can see, this is Internet Explorer version. It is showing me my Internet Explorer, which is the application with which we want to work. And Metabot, we will give a name as Demo Metabot, maybe number 1, something like that. And I'm going to go, let's say, start. And once I go and click on start, it will then take a moment's time, and now it is saying loading. So it will look at all the available UIs of the screens available at the moment. So you can see it is already gone the Metabot designer. So if I go and click on that, it is showing me now all the open screens. So if you would have noticed earlier, this is the only screen which is not internal to the software. All my other screens are like WebCR and things like that, so it is able to detect. But a good rule of thumb maybe would be that maybe at that point of time, maybe you don't want unnecessary screens in that environment to be open. So if you have maybe 10 screens open, then it may be very difficult to look at the image and then draw right conclusion. But if you are comfortable with that, then you may choose to have n number of windows open. I, as you can see, had only a limited set of windows open, and I am now proceeding to go and choose the window at hand. So now you can see it is already proceeding to the recording. So if I click on this screen, it will take a moment's time, and now it is saying creating screen. So it has the first and foremost action that it has done is it has gone and captured my screen, and now it is ready to record all the steps that I am going to be performing over here. So let's say the first step I want is to write a name. So I can write any name over here. So maybe automation, and email is, I will say, automation@anywhere.com. Subject is test automation, and message is automation Metabot, something like that. And once we have gone and done all these things, we can just go and stop this, so that we can see the logic as well as the screen over there. So you can go and see it has actually captured the screen, and all the logic also behind it has been captured. You can see set text automation. It has been able to perform all of these actions. So let me just go back and quickly refresh the screen. Let's take it for a quick spin, as I would say, just to test whether this thing is working properly or not. So I'm just went and refreshed the screen in the background. I saved it from the phone. Now whenever you're going and making any changes, whenever you go and save, it will ask you to save this logic. So the logic is getting stored separately. So I'm going to say maybe a record logic is what I wanted to store over here, and I can save it. Now let's go and quickly run it so that we can go do a quick test on, as I would say, that yes, everything is working. You can see all my steps getting recorded in the actions list. On the left hand side you can see our screen. Now while running it, when you actually run it, at that point of time the underlying environment should be open, because at the time of running it, it actually goes and runs things on the top of the environment at hand, and you can see it has gone and done a 100% job as we wanted it to do, and so far so good, as I would say. So I can probably refresh the screen again for future actions, and for the moment I'm going to go and close this. I'm just going to go and close this. So as of now you can see it has already gone in the logic section, because the logic did get created automatically because we chose record screens with logic. If I go back into the asset section, I can see over here there are certain options which we will quickly go through so as to understand this aspect better. The first thing over here you can see is configure. So you can, by the way, you can add more screens also if you wanted to. You could record further screens. You can create your folder, add more folders. Let's say you wanted a folder structure over here, you could add them. You can add DLLs also. So that is another flexibility over here. We will see going forward how we can add DLLs. And for the moment, what I would like to showcase is this capability to configure. So if I just go and click on configure, it goes and opens the screen for me. And here, you can go and check that whether everything is as per norms. Did all the controls get captured properly or not? So I click on the first, captured on the first text box over here. It shows input type, HTML tag is input, HTML type is text. And similarly, if you click on the next one also, again you can see it is tag is input, type is text. Go to the next one. Tag is input, type is text, and message is text. Last one is text area. Here you notice you can change the mode from object to image to coordinates. So it is possible for us to go and switch between these modes also. So by default it was working in object mode, but let's say for some XYZ reason one mode did not work out, you can switch to image or coordinates for that reason, in case the requirement did dictate for that to happen. So we can switch between different modes. I'm going to go and close this. Also, we discussed earlier the possibility that in case this recorded UI changed tomorrow, then it is also possible for us to quickly go and refresh that captured UI to be able to make itself up to date with the environment at hand. So for example, if this image changed tomorrow, if this website changed tomorrow, every, like I said, application or website does undergo a change after some periodic time intervals. So if such a thing were to happen over here, then we don't have to go and reinvent the wheel from scratch, as I would say. You just have to go and click on calibrate, and once we go and click on calibrate, you can see now it is showing you both the screens, our captured screen as well as the the screen which is currently live with respect to the application at hand. And here you can click on calibrate, and this is where it it is going to do a comparison of the controls within our screen and the actual UI. So if you can see in a moment's time it says calibration successful. So if I go over here and say all new objects, so these are so you can be showing me all these objects over here. If I look at updated objects, so these objects you can see a minuscule amount it is treating as updated. And missing objects, you can see there are no objects that are missing, so everything is up to date. And matching objects, you can say there's a more or less 100% match. So few objects it is treating as updated ideally, so few controls, let's say for some reason if it was not able to capture properly, it might, show is updated. So in case those controls did not properly get captured earlier, then it is a good idea to go and save this. But at the moment, we are absolutely 100% good with our capture. So at the moment, we can, let this be. But in case there were major changes that happened, then you might want to go and save this also, so that the changes do get incorporated. So that was something, which we just checked, so you can see there are hardly any changes, and we are good to go ahead over here. In case there were any major changes which are visible, which you can actually see happening, then you might want to go and save these changes. At the moment, we are, almost 100% matched, so we can practically leave it. And more importantly, all those, controls that we wanted to work with are, the same way. There's no difference over there. So we can make a, quick judgment call over here and proceed further. So do you want to save this? No, at the moment, I can let it be. But in case, let's say earlier, some control did not get properly captured and we were not able to, get that control properly. For example, in the configure section when we went earlier, let's say, some control was not captured properly and things like that, then you might want to, go and do a calibration, and whatever changes then propagated, you might want to save that, so that all those missing objects then, get in and we are good to, proceed further. So at the moment, we are already in sync, so good to go forward, as you can see. So here, you can switch between different modes. You can ascertain that the objects and the properties are required via the configure section. Calibrate allows us to bring our captured screen up to date with the actual UI in the background. So that is configuration and calibration for us. Proceeding further now with the logic section. So I'm going to go ahead now with the logic section, where some logic already got added because we had gone and chosen the option to record the screen with logic. If you had not done that, then you can always go and say add logic and add your logic on your own. That is also totally possible to do. So I'm going to currently click on edit. So as you can see, we are back inside our recorded logic over here. I can see some values coming inside these controls of our choice. Now these values are currently hard coded. So what we want to do is that instead of these hard-coded values, which you can see over, if you double click on any of these, it shows you the actual action. Set text, and the text that you entered is shown directly over here. Notice that you can use variables also over here. So this is precisely what we will be doing. We will be creating variables over here, so that the values which are currently directly going in should ultimately be passed on using variables. So what I'll do is I'm going to just go and maybe copy this text which I have over here, close this editing command that came. I'm going to click on variable manager and I'm going to click on add over here, and here I'm going to pass on that value which I captured and give it a name. So the first variable is name. First value to go in is the name, because this is the first field. Now parameter type, now this is important. Input, output, or input, output. So this is going to be input parameter, because ultimately the value of the name has to be fetched from this CSV, and then that value has to be passed on through this variable onto this text box. So this default value which we are currently seeing at the moment as an automation will get overwritten. So parameter type is input. So variable type is value, name is name, parameter type is input, value is automation. I'm going to go and save it. So that's our first value with variable name and value automation going in. Take in the next one. Next one is automation@anywhere.com. So that's the next value that you want to take in. So I'm going to again go and click on add. Give it a name as email. Value, we will paste some value over here. Parameter type is again input. This is again input parameter. Value which we are passing inside email is automation@anywhere.com. I'm going to go and save that too. That too goes in. Next one is test automation. This is the subject line. So that's going to be my next value which I want to take up and pass on into a variable which I'm going to be creating. So that's the variable. Value is subject. Parameter type is again input. Now it is very important, that these variables are defined as input or output, or input output for that reason. So this is input, this is again input, and this is again input. If you don't define a variable as input or input output, then when you bind this Metabot to the relevant task bot, once this is done, then this variable will not show up inside the task bot, and you will neither be able to pass any value into it or retrieve from value from this variable. So if you want these variables should show up in the relevant task bot where they're going to be called, then we have to go in and ascertain that these variables are declared as type input or input output. The last but not the least over here is message, so I'm going to take this one also, and the variable name that we are going to be creating over here is message. So that's the last variable that we just went and made, and parameter type is again input. So email, message, name, and subject, 4 values which are going in. So in name, what we want is name. In the name, we want the value of the name variable to go in. So I'm going to double click on this, enter text. Oops, my bad. Wrong place to click on. So this is the one that you wanted. The first one, the first text box, enter text. I remove the hard-coded value. I say F2, and I can choose my variable that we just made, that is name, and I'm going to update it. That gets updated. Opening this second line, and let me open it from here itself. Second line getting open. Action is set text. Parameter that we wish to enter was email, so second variable getting updated, that is email. Update this one also, so email going in. Next one is this one, set text, and instead of test automation, what the value that we want to go in is the message value. So F2, and message is what's going in. And last but not the least is this one. This one would have the text as subject, if I'm not wrong. So I'm going to remove this, press F2, bring in my variable subject, update this one also, so that goes and does all these updations. So far so good, I would say. So name, email, message, and subject, these are the values that we want should go in. Once we have done that, I can go and save it, and then I can probably go and refresh the screen. So I go and refresh this one, and let's go and run this one. So let's go and run it from here, see whether these values that we have now put in variables, do those values get passed in or not. So I'm going to go and run this. And we are waiting. You can see all the values were successfully written in. So far so good. So we were able to successfully take those values into variables, and now the variables values are getting written in instead of the hard-coded values which we were having coming in earlier. So that's basically one major change that we were able to effect over here. So once we have done this, the next thing that we want to do is we also wish to be able to go and bring in some error handling, because obviously anything can go wrong anywhere, and it's always good to be prepared to meet all kind of situations at hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and click on commands, and you can see we have error handling available at this spot also. So error handling is available here also. It's not, as big and magnificent as we had inside our development client task editor, but still it's good enough to, get the job done. So I am going to just go and, check on this, and let's see what goes and, uh, gets done. Let's just go and check that out. So as error handling, and you have your begin error handling coming in. Action, we will choose as continue. Take a snapshot of the error. We'll take the snapshot of the error maybe at this location itself on my hard disk, and we'll give it a name as maybe error.bmp. So if error does come, action that we have chosen is continue. Take the snapshot at this spot, error.bmp, and we are going to go and save it. So that brings in our error handling. Now it is kind of out of sync because we wanted it to embed, encompass these 4 lines, but it is coming out of it. So I will just take and drag it and reposition it so that these 4 lines, which are our area of interest within this particular web page, are actually captured successfully over here. And then we can go and save this so that there's a proper closure. Now what we want to do further is, if you remember, when we did error handling earlier, we had also taken some actions, troubleshooting and things like that. Now this error handling block is good for the continue action or stopping the logic if an error did come. So basically it means if an error comes, it will jump to the next line immediately after the end error handling block and start running from it, apart from taking a snapshot at this predefined location. But actions, let's say I wanted to escalate the error to the concerned stakeholders, make a log of this error inside the error log file. Those kind of things, currently it is not supporting because, like I said, this is not a full-fledged task editor. But what we can do is, we could probably capture the value of the error line number and error description variables, which might get populated in case there's an error over here, put them into some output variables. So we will declare some variables of type output, pass down the value of the error line number and error description variables in case an error were to arise over here into those output variables, and then we can read the output variables inside the calling taskbot and log down their values over there, or send it via email to the concerned stakeholders. That is what we can do. You cannot directly send the value of, you cannot directly read the error line number variable of the Metabot inside the taskbot, because if you call the error line variable, error line number variable or error description variable inside the taskbot, then it will look for the error line number or error description variable relevant to the taskbot at hand. But we want to take the values which were thrown back or which were raised within the Metabot. So the only way of doing that and sending it back to the calling taskbot is you capture the values inside some custom variables which you create over here, declare them as type output. So because output variables can send the value back to the calling taskbot, and that is precisely what we will be doing. So what I will do is, what we can do is, we can go inside and create an if else block, and we know that if an error comes, there's one good way of checking that whether or not an error came in this previous block of code, and that is by way of using our error system defined error line number variable. So we'll say if error line number variable is not equal to 0. So we are saying if the system defined error line number variable is not equal to 0, that means on some line over here there's an error. So if error line number is not equal to 0, so probably we want to go and take this stuff and we want to just go and drag it and put it over here. That's better. So if error line number is not equal to 0, capture the values of the system defined error line number and error description variable inside some output variables. So we'll keep saving it intermittently as and once there's an opportunity to do so, so that our work also keeps getting saved. And now I'm going to add two variables. So one variable I will name as error line Metabot. Parameter type is output, because we want the value of this variable we should be able to read it inside our calling task, which calls this Metabot. So error line mbot is one variable which we have declared as output, and initial value we'll give to this as 0. And we will create one more variable which we will refer to as error description Metabot. Parameter type is again output. Leave this as blank. So error description Metabot variable, throw its value back to the calling taskbot via the output variable, and you save that too, and we are good. So error line number Metabot, error line number taskbot. So these are two variables that we wish to be using over here, and I can probably go and save it over here. So these two variables we have declared as type output. This is output. This is also output. So what we want basically is to capture some values of the system generated error line. So if an error does come, we want to capture the error line number inside this error line number mbot variable, and capture the error description inside this user defined error description Metabot variable. That is what we want to do. So what we will do now is I'm going to go and click on commands and click on variable operation command, because variable operation command allows me to take the value of one variable into another. So I'm going to say you take your error line number variable, the custom one that you just made, and within this you store the value of the system defined error line number variable. So error line number. So error line number variable defined by the error line number variable of the system is captured inside this custom error line number variable that we created. One down, one more to go. And again I'm going to say variable operation, and here we will say error description Metabot will have the value of error description over here, and save it. So the custom variables and both of type output are, as you can see, receiving values from their system defined counterparts. So the system error description variable transfers its value to the custom error description variable, and the system error line number variable transfers value to the custom error line number variable, both of which we can access inside the calling taskbot, and there we can go in and do things like log that information into a file and maybe mail to all the concerned stakeholders and things like that. So once you have gone and done this, I'm going to go and save this script. So let me go and save this logic. It's important that this thing is properly saved. So saved it, and now it's time for us to go inside the taskbar and make this thing work over there. So I am going to, or rather we are now going to go inside our calling taskbot, and let's go and design that one. So going into the demo section, create a new folder, give it a name as task editor, and we are good to begin. So objective is to keep reading rows of information from this CSV file and keep writing that information inside this web page via the Metabot that we just made. So that's the larger plan at hand, and since we need to be able to read these values, we need to create variables. So 4 variables, name, email, subject, message, have to be created within the task so that these values can be read into them. Also, we had created 2 variables for capturing the Metabot's error description and error line number, for which again we will need to create 2 variables over here at the task level to be able to hold those values. So let me go and create those 6 variables. So basically it boils down to creating the same 6 variable that we just made inside our taskbot. So name is the first one, This name will be meant for reading the value of the name variable over here and passing it down into this name variable of the Metabot. Second variable that we need is email. So add once more, create one more variable email, and I'm going to save that too. Add once more, next variable that we want is subject. So creating another variable called subject, and you save that too. Going forward, next variable that you want is message. So name, email, subject, and last but not the least is message. Name, email, subject, message, 4 variables created. What else? And we also need 2 variables. Error description Metabot, error line number Metabot. These 2 variables are also needed. So I'm going to say add. One is error line number Metabot, and one is error description Metabot. So these are the variables that we want. Error line number Metabot and error description Metabot. So these are the total 6 variables that we made, the same counterparts. So these 2, error description, error line number, as you would have already guessed, are to take back the value of these 2 variables, and the remaining 4 are to pass on the values into their counterparts so that the values then further go in and get written into this form over here. That's the game plan. So let's proceed further. So objective is, like I said, reading from the CSV and then writing into that bot at hand. So for that we will bring in a loop first. Read from CSV text, browse. Let's go and point to that CSV which is lying right over here. So I am just going and pointing to that CSV. It's a CSV file. It contains a header. We definitely don't want these, first row over here. So we'll say contains header, chop off the leading and trailing spaces, chop, and we're going to go and save it. So that, is our loop over here. And this will then go and, so you can see it has gone and, brought in those 4 lines of code. Here, what we want to do is, since we are not clicking on this send button, the reason why I'm not deliberately clicking on the send button is, because if I send multiple requests from my IP address, my ISP, my internet service provider may block me for being a bot or something. So that is why you will see I'm not clicking on the send button as a result of that, fearing that consequence. But if you can see me, if I'm able to get the 4 values over here, I can definitely go and click on this one also using our automation anywhere software. In a real life situation, we would be doing that. But this is just, a preventive strategy to prevent us from getting locked out by our ISP, something which we have seen happening earlier also. So taking a leaf of learning from our previous experiences on these lines. So now what we want is, so our objective would be to open the website, login page of data over here, and then close this web page so for every iteration we will open a new instance of this website, log the data in, then close this page, and then again for the next row of data we'll open a fresh new page and proceed accordingly. So what I'm going to do is I am going to bring in a command which allows me to open this website. So I say web recorder, open the browser, which will go and open my browser window over here. This is what we want. And at the end of all these things, we want to close this browser window also. So close browser becomes the last command. So open it, do some job, and finally close it. Now, after opening it, we also want to, websites might take some time to open, and we would always like to give the website the time so that can open, and then only would like to proceed. Otherwise, in case it's not properly loaded, it can lead to issues. So what we will do is we will drag a wait for window command after this open command, and we will say let's give this window maybe 10 seconds to open. If it does not open in 10 seconds, you stop the task. If it opens before 10 seconds, it will automatically allow me to go ahead and do the next job at hand. So that's the benefit of the wait for window command as opposed to delay, which I'm choosing to keep over here. So wait for this window to open, our website at hand, give it 10 seconds max, doesn't open, stop the task. So that's the logic that we have put into place to ascertain that yes, our website is open at within the stipulated time frame, and then we can go ahead. So once all these things are done, next plan of action, course of action would be to pick up the values of the current record and put it inside of a variable. So this is, as you would have already guessed, is going to be accessed using the file data column variables. So name is the first column, so that's going to be file data column 1. So name is F2, file data column 1, that's name. Next one is email coming in next. So variable operation, after name we have email is second column. F2 file data column 2, email is the second column. Next one is subject is file data column 3. So name, email, and then subject is file data column 3. And last but not the least is message, which is file data column 4. So this one is message, and that's file data column 4. So far so good. What's next? So now job that remains to be done is to bind these variables to our Metabot. So I'm going to refresh this. Click on my Metabots, drag this Metabot over here and leave it. And that opens this binding screen. You can see there's the input variables which will take the values in. These are our output variables which will take the values from our Metabot which we are trying to pass back. So giving meaningful names at both ends helps because you now know where to give in what. So for name of the Metabot, I will pass in name of my taskbot. Similarly for email, it will receive values from the email of my taskbot. Similarly for subject, I'm saying subject of my taskbot, and last but not the least is message. So that's going to be bound to message. So these are the input variables. So value from my CSV file is being read into my taskbot and taskbot variables, and they are then being passed down into their counterparts with the same name in the Metabot. And now to get the values back from our Metabot variables, so error line number Metabot variables value will go inside its counterpart with the same name in the taskbot, and similarly for error description also we will have the same process. And once this association has been done for both input and output variables, we can go and save it. So after this line has been run, we would now like to check whether an error did arise inside the Metabot. So we will put a if else condition and we will check the value of our variable at hand, which is error line Metabot. So this is the error line number variable. So we are saying if error line number is not equal to 0, which by the way also means that this should be initialized to 0. So if error line number Metabot variable is not equal to 0, after reading its value from its counterpart coming in from the Metabot, so if it is not equal to 0, then what we will do is we will drag a log to file command so that we can log an error into a log file. So at this location I am going to say error.txt, and here two things. First is the error line number variable at the top, followed by the error description variable at the bottom. These are two things that we are doing. I'm going to copy this so that there is a proper capture information. Add a timestamp and save it. So if error line number is not equal to 0, then you log this error into a log file, and this is where we are writing it. Also, we will go and send an email. This does require that the email association has been already done, and here we will go and display the value of the error line number and Metabot variables. Attachment would be our, I'm going to save this. Attachment, if you remember, inside of our Metabot, we had, written out this location where we are capturing our error BMP. So this probably we would like to attach if an error did come. So because if an error did come, the BMP will be created, and we can attach that and send to all the concerned stakeholders along with the values at hand. Save it. And what else? Maybe we'd also like to throw a error message pop up on the screen informing the person, if any, running the script on the screen that look, something did go for a fix. So I can put in these values and save that. So if error line number is not equal to 0, you message box the error, you log the error into a log file, you send an email with the snapshot and the values of the error line number and description variables. That's what we are doing. If the error line number was equal to 0, that means there was no bug or error in our script. In that case, what we would like to do, in that case, you can just throw a pop-up on the screen that we can say something like value inserted successfully for maybe the first column, which is the name column, so that that for this particular person the value got inserted successfully. So this should by and large meet our objective at hand. We should be able to go and get the needful done. So let's see if we can achieve the goal over here, as in write out the values inside this using the Metabot. So moment of truth, let's go and run this. So I'm going to save this script, give it a name as taskbot for Metabot over here, and I'm going to save this one, and let's take it for a spin. Let's see what happens. So here we go. So running this one. So it should open the website, and we should see the data now going in. That's some issue. Let me just close the script. Something went amiss. Error at hand, probably I have this logic editor window open. So if you have the logic editor window open, it sometimes leads to very weird kind of anomalies, as you can see happening right now. So I'll just go and close it. My oversight over here. So I'm just going to close that window. And now let's go. So let's go and close this logic editor window. It's closed now. And once again, we proceed to go and run this and see what happens. And we are in. And now you can see a response which is more suitable to our taste. You can see value inserted successfully for training. That's the first row of data going in, and now the second instance running in. So as I said, for every page of information we would be going and having, this is training 1. You can see the second set of value was training 1. That's also gone in, and then the last one would be training 2, as will also be confirmed by the software. So training 2 going in, training 2, that was our third instance. So as you can see, you were able to go and get in the values successfully written inside the surface at hand using our Metabots, and this is precisely what we wanted to showcase over here. So that was something about trying to foresee that how we can use Metabots using our taskbot and giving us a feel about this particular aspect at hand. Let me, however, go and bring you up to speed on one other facet over here. What I will do is I will go inside back into assets. So that demonstration, writing inside that page was done. And I'm going to add one more asset over here. I'm going to say add DLLs. And I am going to go inside our folder, good old folder again. And I am going to choose DLL demo. I'm going to pick up this first utility over here. I've added this particular DLL. And in this DLL, I'm going to say, let me go and add some logic. So now it is again taking me to the screen by default. So I will say show me all the assets at the moment. So it is showing me this screen as well as this DLL. So my objective currently is to work with this DLL. So I've chosen this DLL now. You can see in this DLL this opens. And this DLL basically contains some ideas just to quickly understand how our software using Metabots we can work with DLLs also. So I've just taken one DLL over here. The first objective command over here you can see is one quick method which takes two numbers, adds them and gives me the result. Just to come to speed with respect to this feature. It could have been more complex operation where maybe you are passing down a series of values for getting some complex engineering or statistical results which the software then generates and provides to us. So I'm going to give it some dummy value, maybe 10 over here and then some value 10 over here. Output, maybe I want to keep it inside this variable clipboard and I can just go and add it. So this will go and take those two numbers and add them over there. And then maybe it's going to, I'll put a message box and then just emit the value of the clipboard on the screen so that we know that this thing is working. So I save it, give it a name as DLL logic and I can save this one. And let's go and run this. So here we go about running it. So that should add those two numbers 10 plus 10 and give me 20, and we are just waiting for it to go and do that. And that's it. So you can see you are able to take two values, pass them in and get some output. So that was the objective over here. Again, instead of going and doing all these things, hard coding all the values and things like that, we will be using variables again. So let me again go and bring in some variables. So I'm going to say variable manager. I'm going to say add. I'm going to say input 1 variable, type is input, value initially is 10. So save this one. Add again, take another variable as in input 2. Input again, value as 10. So input 1 and input 2, two variables that we have taken as type input, both having initial values as 10. Add again and create one more variable which I'll refer to as a result. Type is output, initial value I'll keep it as 0 and save it. Now what we want is we'll go and modify this expression. So I'm going to just modify the expression. Instead of this 10 over here, we'll press F2 and bring in our input 1 variable. And then instead of this second one, again I will go and bring in input 2, my second variable. Output we will give in the variable as result. So input 1 goes in for the first value, input 2 goes in second value, output goes to variable result, and we update this, so that will get updated. And in message box, instead of clipboard, what we want is we want to go and display the value of results. So the result gets displayed over there. So there we are. So we can go and save this one and run this one. So again I get the same output, but this time you can see everything happened through variables, and this is precisely what we wanted. So you were able to go and get this thing done using variables, and this was basically output kind of variable as you just saw. So now again binding this thing to a task and then trying to make it work using that. Let's go and try to get that thing also accomplished. So what I'll do is I'll go back and probably I can close this one again. Do you want to save changes? Yes, we definitely do. So you can see now I've got two logics over here. So we will go and say new task editor, and once again we would be logging in over here, and we'll create two variables so as to pass the values in. Input 1 is initially 0. Oh, excuse me, that became input 2. Alright, no harm done. Add, create another variable as in input 1 also, give it initial value 0. And those are my two input variables. Output we want as a result, that also initial value as 0. So again I have created three set of variables very similar to the ones that I made inside my inside my Metabot. So I had input 1, input 2 and result over here, and similar set of variables I have created inside my task also. So what I will do is I will interact with the user and ask him for the value of these variables. So I'm going to say don't write in any window. I'm going to say something like enter first operand to be added, and assign it to variable input 1 and save this. Then again drag a prompt for value. Don't write in any window, and I'm going to say enter second operand to be added. Assign to variable, this is input 2, that goes and does the job. Once these two are done, what we will do now is we can go and call our Metabot again. So I'm going to call our Metabot, and here you can see now you have two set of associations. One is for the form that you created, that screen, and the other is for the DLL that we just made. Currently our focus area is on this DLL. So input 1 would hold the value of input 1 variable, and input 2 would hold the value of input 2 variable. Result, we will keep it inside our variable called result. So input 1 goes inside input 1, input 2 goes inside input 2, both get added, result goes inside this variable result, which we will then proceed to showcase on the screen. So I can just say message box output of DLL addition is something like result, and that should do the trick. So I'm going to go and save this one, give it a name as taskbot for Metabot DLL logic, and we can save it. And let's go and run this one and see what happens. And once again we go, it will ask me for the first operand, assign it to that one. So that's the first operand. Let's say I'll say 100 this time, so 100. And then you want the second operand also, which maybe this time I will make it as 200. First operand 100, second operand I will make it as 200, so 100 and then 200, and result for the 2 is 300. So this was us using a DLL this time. So we just saw how we can also incorporate DLLs in our Metabots. As you can see, if you have multiple assets inside your Metabot, you have separate areas where you can enter values for the same. So previously we were working in this section where we create a separate task bot to pass in values into the screen and get the output for error handling, and this one we were just passing in some values to see the calculations happening, and the result again we were able to showcase. So that was something about how we can also incorporate DLLs, because many times we may be required to perform some complex calculations and things like that, which may not be possible within the scope of our software. So our software, like for variable operation, is good for some simple addition, subtraction, or maybe you can do some Excel calculations and calculate it using the Excel feature of our software allows you to read the value of a cell. So if that works for you, you can do that. Otherwise, you can also do a run script command, call a VB script, JavaScript, which does the calculation, returns the values to you. Last but not the least, that is also possible using this DLL. So if you have some DLLs which you were already maybe using for some complex area of work, our software supports two-way communication with the same using the feature of Metabots. So that is something which I wanted to further bring us all of us on top of. Now Metabots can again be, we can again go and share these Metabots with our other users. So you can see if I go back inside Metabots, I can see a Metabot is lying over here. So but if I directly try to go and upload this Metabot right now, it will throw me an error. Let me show you why. If I click on upload, insufficient privileges. Why is it saying insufficient privileges? If I go inside my control room and see my current user is basically a basic role. Now the basic role, if you let me just log in again and bring you up to speed on this also, so you will see how we can get this thing also done. So that was deliberate to help you understand why I am going to do the next operation which I am going to do. So just logging in inside my WebCR. So if you go inside your user management and you look at your role which I'm currently logged in, I'm currently logged in as user new. So currently you can see username user new is online. So if you go and look at your user new, it has got basic role and validator role. So if I go inside my security and I go and click on basic roles, permissions. So the basic role has only couple of permissions, that too related to tasks. So I can upload, download tasks. I can even not delete tasks. If I go inside Metabots manager, I have no rights over here. So that is a problem. So what we will do is to get around this, we will go back inside our security. We go inside security and we will create a new role which we will name as Metabot. So I create a new role by the name of Metabot. I go inside Metabots manager and I assign all permissions to this role. And I go and save it. Role has been added. Now I will go back into my user management area and I am going to modify my currently logged in user through which I am logged into my client, and I am going to add my Metabot role over here. And now I can go and save it. And now you can see I have got basic, validator and Metabot role. And this Metabot role, as you can see, if we go back and look inside our security and we click on Metabots, so Metabot role basically gives you permission to upload, download, delete Metabots on the WebCR. That is the focus area of our current operations. So now let's go and try to attempt doing what we just did and see what happens this time. So I go again with enhanced permissions this time, because now my user has been given this Metabot role. So that means I should now be able to upload Metabots onto this area of this WebCR. So I click on upload. It will ask me for the comment, because that is how version control is also catered to it by means of comment entry. So now you can see it is asking me the comment. I am going to say test Metabot upload. So, and I'm going to go and save it, and that is going to go and upload my Metabot. And in a moment's time we should be able to see it. It's uploaded. Now if you let me go inside repository manager and let me go inside Metabots. There you are. So it has been successfully uploaded. This is precisely what we wanted. Now if you go inside if I go inside my task, if I go inside my manage, if I go inside my repository, I will be able to see my Metabot also lying on the server side. So you can see Metabots lying on your server side now. And if you want, you can now remove the Metabot lying on the client. So if I go and delete I will be able to download it also, but as of now I already have it. So let's go and first remove it from my local machine and then see if we can download it. So this is my local machine from which I go and delete this one, It's deleted from my local machine, and now I will attempt to go and download it from the WebCR. It is on the WebCR, so I'm going to try to attempt downloading this one. So manage repository. Again, I will be connected to my WebCR control room, and notice it is lying on the server side but not on my local machine. I just deleted it from my local machine. Now I select it from the WebCR and I say download. Notice I had given download rights to myself earlier. If you don't have download rights, you cannot download it. It is downloaded successful. And now if I go back and look inside my local machine, I can close this. If I go back inside my local machine and I say, let me go and check my Metabots real quick, I have it here. So that is how you can upload, download. I have permissions. I can even delete this Metabot from the server side also. That too is possible. So, but again, giving delete rights is something which you might want to do with extreme caution, because I'm showing it currently for the sake of demonstration, because I have those rights and permissions. Otherwise, somebody deleting it from your WebCR could, it could lead to very disastrous consequences. So this is right needs to be given with a pinch of salt, as I would say. So I'm just going and clicking on my Metabots, and it is there. Taking a moment to refresh. There you are. So if you want, I can now go and select this one and delete it. So, but like I said, this is something. So delete right is something you may not want to give. You may want to be careful about that. So if you want, when you're assigning rights, I was more than generous because I was showing it from demonstration perspectives. But otherwise, when you go inside security, you can go inside your Metabot role. And when you go inside Metabots manager, you can remove these delete rights, remove the deletes rights, so that even by accident nobody can delete it. So now if I go and click on this, go to repository again. So I have removed the delete permissions now. So other permissions should be there, but delete should have been. So now if I click on this, it is allowing me to download, it's not allowing me to delete. So that is how you play with this. So that was something about Metabots. We saw how we can write onto a surface after reading from a CSV. We saw how we could play with DLLs. We saw how we can upload and download, and if required also delete, how we can set specific permissions, because otherwise typical bot creator role does not have upload and download rights with respect to Metabot. So those additional rights have to be granted. We saw all those things also. So I do hope everybody is good and comfortable till this point. And until we meet next time, thank you.